welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Leading off the show today is John Campea.
Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, coming to you from right here at the Collider Video Studios here in Burbank, California. Now, I know that hundreds of thousands of you have tuned in this morning specifically to see our reaction to the 50 Shades Darker teaser trailer that dropped earlier today. We are going to withhold our reactions until the full trailer drops tomorrow. Try to keep it contained, guys.
Also, your host of Jedi Council, Kristian Harloff.
Ashley, your hair looks wonderful today.
Thank you. It's
You're
straight.
welcome. Looks
you
nice.
noticed.
I
really
like
good.
it. I like
Also,
it.
here it's Mark Ellis.
I have some thoughts about her hair, actually, but I'll save that for tomorrow, along with our 50 Shades Darker.
I'll fight you
Oh,
over straight
man.
hair.
All right, guys. Well, as happens sometimes, you know, we get all these nice show graphics put together, and then a story drops out of nowhere. And this one is rather significant if you're a fan of the comic book genre. As many of you know, X-Men Apocalypse ended with a little bit of a tease about a certain Essex corporation. Well, now Bryan Singer has confirmed that Nathaniel Essex, a.k.a. Mr. Sinister, first appeared in 1987 in the X-Men comic books, is going to be the main head villain of the upcoming and final Hugh Jackman Wolverine film. Kristian, you heard this news. Number one, does this get you excited for the film, and how do you think fans in general are going to react to this?
Well, I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about the character, because I don't. I know that he debuted in X-Men comics a long time ago, and I think for me, depending on how Singer sets it up, and like Apocalypse, I think didn't deliver the way I know that some hardcore fans wanted him to.
Yeah.
So maybe this is kind of a redo for him to try to do that again. I think he's handled Magneto pretty well, and whether it's the original back in 2000 or when they just Fassbender's version of it, I think Singer has handled villains well there. So. I want to see a lot about this character. I hear a lot about him. Fans are getting excited just from the mention that he's going to be in it. So I'm interested.
Mark, what do you think?
I would go with Mr. Sinister as one of my top villains to be in the Wolverine movie, because you don't want somebody that's like all omnipotent, powerful, like an Apocalypse. That I think that he was a better suited villain to be in an X-Men film when all the X-Men have to gang up on him. Here, the only thing that gives me a tinge of disappointment is that I really would have loved to have seen them rectify the Wolverine Sabretooth thing. You know, I'd love to see Sabretooth have one more go at Wolfie, just because it was so botched in the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie. But having Mr. Sinister in this film makes the most sense to me, so I'm very excited to hear this.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that the whole Sabretooth thing, because both Hugh Jackman and who's the guy who played
Schreiber?
Liev Schreiber, they have both kind of joked online about maybe him coming back.
It could make sense still.
It would totally make sense. Look, Mr. Sinister to me, my all-time favorite villain, I don't really count Magneto as a villain. He's a misunderstood, troubled soul. But my favorite villain in the X-Men universe has always been Apocalypse. And so while I kind of liked X-Men Apocalypse, I was let down because I was hoping for a whole bunch more. But Mr. Sinister is the coolest villain they've ever had. I know I'm always going on about the comic book story run of X-Men or Age of Apocalypse. Sinister plays such a key, pivotal role in that story. He's just unbelievable in it. And then the way they transition that into X-Men and all that kind of stuff, this could be great. Now, how they handle his powers, because they've always been a little bit loosey-goosey in the comic books about Mr. Sinister's powers and how powerful is he and which powers does he has. And it does run the risk of doing what you were kind of worried about being really too omnipotent, like too much power. So it'll be really interesting to see how they do this. Now, James Mangold's directing this one, as opposed to Singer, but Singer's clearly involved. So I think, number one, this is a great villain for this title. When they said, though, that we were going to get Cable in the next Deadpool, I kind of thought maybe Sinister, if you understand the history of Sinister with X-Men and all that kind of stuff, that maybe they might attach him to that. But attaching him to Wolverine, I think, is great.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. I said before, as far as Singer being involved with the production of it, because ultimately I think it is going to tie into the X-Men universe too, because I think Mr. Sinister, this won't be the last time you see him.
I hope not.
They shouldn't waste him that way. So I think by Singer producing and Mangold obviously directing this movie, by introducing this character, bring him in there. Let's get a powerful villain that doesn't have to just stick around for one movie and then he's out. And like, okay, now we got to build a new villain, because no matter, it's been hard for villains to stick in all of these superhero movies. There are a few that reach out. There are some that are done well, and there's, for the most part, we've been disappointed with a lot of them. Whether it's Zemo from Civil War,
right,
or if it's whatever it might be, the villains haven't been handled great yet in a lot of these movies. So let's get a good one in here. Maybe Mangold can do it. We'll figure it out.
The timeline issue is going to be interesting, though, because this Wolverine movie doesn't take place along the same lines as when a Deadpool movie would take place with Cable, potentially. But X-Men movies, you talked about how they're good at playing loosey-goosey with some comic book lore. They can also do that with this time-space continuum itself. So I think they'll be able to wedge it. If Mr. Sinister plays well in the new Wolverine movie, it won't be the last time you see him, in my opinion.
And the really interesting thing about Sinister, he's a cerebral character. He is a genius. So I really hope that they play on that aspect as well, because what they did with Apocalypse was, I'm bad! I want to kill everybody! Grrr! I'm so angry. Like, I hope they don't do that with Sinister, because he's a much sharper dude.
He wanted to tear down our world and make a better one.
All right. Anyway, let's go on to our first official story of the day.
All right. Though we still have many months to wait before the May 7, 2017 release of the highly anticipated Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Chris Pratt is already starting the hype machine. Speaking with the Toronto Sun, Pratt had a big claim, saying it's a fabulous script. I think it's going to be, I'm not using hyperbole here, I think it's going to be the biggest spectacle movie of all time. John, what do you think about Pratt's comments about Guardians as the biggest spectacle movie of all time?
Absolutely giddy. Absolutely giddy. Because, first of all, you've heard me go on about how great of a director I think James Gunn is. This dude has proved it with tiny little non-existent budgets, and then he comes into Guardians of the Galaxy and he crushed it. I mean, at the time, it's really fine and well for everybody in hindsight to look back at Guardians of the Galaxy and say, oh, we all knew it was going to be a hit because it's Marvel. No, people did not know. When they first announced this thing, it had everybody, including myself, scratching our heads a little bit. It's like, you get Iron Man and Captain America and the Hulk. You're doing Guardians of the Galaxy? What James Gunn was able to do with that movie, making it fun and exciting and funny and engaging with characters that we loved and got attached to, was amazing. But he also did something he hasn't been able to do in the past because of all of his films being very limited in their budget. He made it a spectacle. For Chris Pratt to say, and Chris Pratt is not given to hyperbole, for him to go, look, this could be the biggest spectacle movie of all time. Seeing what James Gunn did with that first one, understanding that Marvel bumped his budget for the second one. Look, I was already excited for this movie. I am like flipping my lid for this one. Anyway, Kristian, what do you think about his comments?
Well, look, it's not like him say, a lot of times when actors are promoting movies and you say, well, it's going to be so good. He's not saying, oh, it's going to be good. He used the words biggest spectacle movie of all time. Now, do I think it's going to be the biggest one of all time? No. Because of all time is very hard to do in anything.
True.
So of all time. However, I do think it's going to be huge. It's going to be spectacle, and it has to be. It makes a lot of sense for everything you were just saying. This is a movie that is became a huge hit in August, to where they were hoping it would do okay, and it crushed. And not only crushed with the fact that it made money, fans were very happy with it.
Yep,
it's
very
beloved
well
by a
received.
lot of people. It's very well received. And by doing this and by upping the budget, which you made sense to do on a sequel anyway. I mean, Deadpool's going to get a bump in money. Any time of a movie that has a lower kind of budget and then blows up the way it did, it should. And it calls for the big, from where it's a space opera. It's a space opera. So let's make it a spectacle. It has to be. Even the short footage that we saw at Hall H, it looks like that. So it makes a ton of sense, and I believe it 100%, just not of all time.
Mark, you hear Chris Pratt come out and say, I believe this is going to be the biggest spectacle movie of all time. Now, those are big words considering we just got a 50 Shades darker like teaser today. Can Guardians 2 back this up?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I'm a guy that's not prone to hyperbole either. Do I think the Redskins are going to go 19-0 this year? Yes, of course I do. But that wasn't a joke, guys. Not everything I say is meant to be humorous, but I will say that even if Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is the biggest spectacle movie of all time, there's always another train coming around, like what Kristian said. If it becomes that, it's not like Cal Ripken's record that's untouchable, because Infinity War is coming out very soon after Guardians of the Galaxy 2,
right.
and that has even more characters and superheroes and bad guys than Civil War did, which was not a bad spectacle film in its own right. Although when I look at something like a Civil War or even something like Star Wars The Force Awakens, while those were huge huge movie events. They weren't necessarily the biggest spectacle movies of all time. I look at something more like the original Independence Day felt like a spectacle movie to me because it had fun being that huge beast in a movie theater. And I think that's what Guardians of the Galaxy can do so well, because the sense of humor that is injected into the first movie and presumably into this one, it's going to have fun being a huge popcorn movie. So I'm totally on board with what Chris Pratt is saying.
As far as spectacle films go, just within the comic book genre, man. I mean, yes, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but we got the new Avengers Infinity War coming. We got Justice League coming. I mean, there are some big spectacle stuff coming. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. All right, Ashley, what's next?
It's Monday, which means it's time for the weekend box office report, brought to you by our friends at AMC Theaters. Sully took the top spot in its first weekend in release, pulling in $35.5 million for an easy number one. Finishing at number two was When the Bow Breaks, taking in an estimated $15 million. Don't Breathe came in at number three with $8.2 million. At number 4 was Suicide Squad with $5.6 million. And at number 5, another new release, The Wildlife, took in $3.4 million. Mark, what did you think about Sully taking the top spot at the box office?
I'm very impressed. It's nice to see that there is such a big market for Sully, because that true story is so incredible to see. And obviously, when you put Tom Hanks in a movie, you have Clint Eastwood behind the camera, you're going to get some notoriety. So having that film come out and open as strong as it did in September, which is not the easiest month as far as box office receipts to open a movie, I think that's pretty damn impressive. And when you look at the rest of the top 5, there's not a lot of surprises there. It's nice to see Suicide Squad holding in the top 5, though. I enjoy seeing that movie in there, because even though I didn't love the movie, I like that people are still wanting to go out and see those kind of movies, regardless of what Rotten Tomatoes or critics have to say. But Sully, I think, a well-earned number one at the box office. Plus, the IMAX footage that we saw in Sully, I had the pleasure of seeing it in an IMAX theater. It's pretty damn exciting to see on the big screen. So I would recommend people go check it out in theaters. It's good.
Kristian.
Yeah, so for me, you look at these numbers in general, and you're like, not a lot of people went to the movies this weekend. But it's not taking away anything from Sully. $35 million, obviously big. That's a big opening for Eastwood. It's a big opening in September in general. And what I think was really smart about Sully, I have to say, I was on vacation last week, so I missed it, but I do want to see it this week, and I'm hearing good things about it. But what I really like about it, it's an hour and a half. But just about, right?
96 minutes, 96 and you're right, see it in IMAX, dog.
That's smart. That's the way, if you don't have to stretch it out, if they told the story, and from what I'm hearing they did, if they can tell the story and you don't feel like things were left out in that hour and 36 minutes, don't stretch it. Don't push it. And it looks like that can pay off if indeed that's the case. $35.5 million for that movie, really good. The fact that Don't Breathe is still... Don't Breathe, I think, is one tacking in another $8 million. That's good for overall. $3.4 million for a kids animated, making it the number 5. Nobody went to the movies this weekend.
Yeah. 3.4. I mean, one of the things that really impressed me about Sully was that, because going into it, and I said this in our review, was that how do you take a 208-second event and make an hour-and-a-half movie out of it? And I thought they would have all this build up to it first, but no, the screen comes on. And it's the event. It's what's happening. And what Clint Eastwood was able to do, played beautifully by Tom Hanks, and Aaron Eckhart is fantastic in this movie, is they were really able to take this event and they made it a movie not about the plane going down in the Hudson. They made it about the lives of the people surrounding it. And at that level, it really gets you right away. You get invested in these characters right away, and you're rooting for them, you're cheering for them, and it's moving and all that kind of stuff. It is just a really well put together little film. Nice little cameo, by the way, by Michael Rappaport in it as well. A fun little cameo as well. As far as Don't Breathe goes, the movie's about to hit $90 million, made for less than 10.
Yep.
I mean, absolutely crazy. It's really good for the heart to see these types of movies continue to do well.
And it's awesome to see Sully, because when you see Sully, and especially in a theater and you're with a bunch of other people, you feel the community aspect of what that film's bringing to the table, because of all the first responders that were in New York, whether it's the scuba divers helping save people or the people who are running ferries back and forth. Everybody in New York came together to help out in that moment. It's no surprise that a New York team beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl.
And it's interesting thing too, like you said, remember 35 million, that may not sound like a huge number, but remember in context, it is one of the bigger openings you've ever had in September. September is not the month for huge box office things. And the other interesting thing about this, Tom Hanks hasn't had a film open at #1 in like 7 years.
That's crazy.
Really? Which when you think it's Tom Hanks, one of the greatest movie stars of all time, and has had some great movies and some not so good movies the last 7 years. And I don't know what it is. We're speculating maybe it was Toy Story 3 was the last.
That would make sense. Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Well, at TIFF this past weekend, Collider's Steve Weintraub had a chance to sit down with Oscar winner Lupita Nyong'o to chat about her upcoming role in Queen of Katwe. No surprise, the conversation turned to her role as Maz Kanata in Rian Johnson's Star Wars Episode 8, where Nyong'o revealed she has yet to begin filming her role in the movie. She only said her shoot is in the future. Kristian, why do you think Lupita Nyong'o hasn't begun shooting Star Wars Episode 8 yet?
Well, actually, it's Maz Kanata. I'll just let you know.
My mistake.
So yeah, listen. This is something. The reason why is because it's a performance capture, so they can. You don't necessarily have to do it right away. But I didn't necessarily need Maz Kanata in this movie. If she's going to be in it, great. If she appears in Episode 9. She wasn't such a staple to Episode 7. It was a big part. It was a role they needed into it, but it wasn't something like, okay, they're not going to be able to do Episode 8 unless they have Maz Kanata back. You don't need her, so if it's a smaller scene or something where she just kind of pops in there, I'm fine with it. So why? Nothing. It's planned to go this way. I don't think it's anything to be concerned of whatsoever.
Yeah, I actually, you know what? I don't know. Maybe you guys know this. I don't know that Lupita Nyong'o actually even did her own motion capture for Episode 7. I mean, and if that's the case...
She did. I'm pretty sure she did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she did. But they don't need her to. And now she's a busy actress right now. I mean, with all the movies she's doing, planning to become the future ex-Mrs. Campea, all that kind of stuff she's got going on. My God, that woman's beautiful. Anyway,
she is.
And she's so talented and she's so good. Her schedule's full. They could have very easily had another actor do all the motion capture and then just bring her in for a couple of days in the post process and do her voice stuff. I mean, so really you don't need her to be the person in the motion capture. So I hear this. Doesn't really surprise me at all.
It's not that piece of news where we can take it and go running with now we know how Episode 8 is going to play out. You know,
Right,
it's like,
yes.
oh, well, if she hasn't filmed yet, then that means they're going to steer with the story more this way, because I loved Maz Kanata in the first movie. I know people liked her. What I was raving about her. I loved that scenes that we got from her. I thought that Lupita Nyong'o did a great job with the voiceover. I felt like this character was 900 years old. She lent some nice levity and then also some real mysticism about the Force to the movie. And I think you're going to see her in Episode 8 in a very emotional scene that's going to take place towards the beginning of the movie, according to this idiot, because I think that there's going to be a funeral scene in Episode 8.
Yeah.
I think that because
that
of
would
how
make
she
sense.
feels about the subject of the funeral, there's no way that Maz Kanata is not going to show up.
I got to disagree with you, though, John, as far as the performance capture, because, I mean, when I was lucky enough to talk to Lupita Nyong'o about it, because Andy Serkis had kind of shown her the ropes
Right.
also, and I think that it goes back to this whole argument with performance capture in general, is that there's difference from just the motion capture and performance capture. What Lupita Nyong'o did with her body movements and her facial structure and all that, I don't think you just put another actress in there. I think that's where we are with performance capture. I think that she is someone that if you're going to do Maz Kanata, you need her in that role because it's different. Had they just done the motion capture, then maybe that's the case, something like what they did with Warcraft, but this was performance capture. So for me, I would like to see her do it again if she's going to do it at all, but I just don't necessarily think she needs to be in the movie.
Well, then it also depends on how much would Maz Kanata be in it and what is she doing?
Right.
If she's sitting in a chair for like a 5-minute scene,
right.
then it can be anybody. If there's a lot of stuff, but like in Episode 7, the way she crawls across the table, yeah, you'd be really good to have the person voicing it actually
I'd
acting
like to
that
see her
as well.
use the Force a little bit, like we almost got to see an
Which
episode.
we should have seen in
Right.
episode. I don't know why they cut that out. All right, folks, we've reached that part of the show now for buy or sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Ashley's got a few other items in the world of movie news. She's yawning right now. And then she's going to throw it to us at the table. We're simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Ashley, what do
I
we
was
got?
clearing my throat, okay?
Okay.
All right, Dwayne Johnson joined the G.I. Joe franchise back in 2013 with the sequel G.I. Joe Retaliation. Now, because Johnson is tied to a number of other high-profile movie franchises in addition to his television work, it's going to be quite some time before G.I. Joe 3 gets going. That fact was confirmed by Storm Shadow actor Byung-hun Lee during a recent chat with Latino Review Media at TIFF, who said the studio is waiting for the actor's schedule to clear, especially for Dwayne Johnson. John, buy or sell Johnson's schedule clearing soon for a return with G.I. Joe 3.
I sell it. The Rock's got too many other potentially cool things he could do than going back to G.I. Joe. I mean, look, I I thought the first G.I. Joe film was going to be just a big pile of horse crap. And it actually wasn't all that bad. I thought the first one wasn't all that bad. Then I got excited when I heard about the new names, The Rock, Bruce Willis. And I honestly thought G.I. Joe 2 was a step backwards. I did not like the film. I did not find anything interesting about it. And it didn't leave me wanting to see another one. So I got a feeling The Rock's not so anxious to get back to this one either. Maybe he is. I don't know. I'm fine with the delay. So overall, I'm just going to sell it.
I'm going to buy it. I think that it will happen. I think that The Rock, because he's got much more of a producer's hat on these days.
He does, yeah.
I think he's going to be a little bit more involved. I'm still hoping and praying that they're going to take a page out of the old comics, the G.I. Joe Marvel comics back in the day, because that's the tone that they need to hit with these movies. They're really good. And I thought from G.I. Joe 2, the trailers, I thought we were going to get some of that, because I didn't like the first one. There was parts of it that I thought were okay, but for the most part, I think Stephen Sommers is, no thank you, please go away. But I think that if we have a different direction, I think The Rock will do it, and he put Roadblock kind of in the forefront. I think it could happen, and I think that with him, our buddy Ken Knapsack had said something that made so much sense.
That's rare.
About The Rock, is that what everyone's like, how does The Rock do this? How is The Rock able to do all of this stuff with his schedule? And you forget, for as wrestling fans, this is what he did for his every day on the road, doing pay-per-views, doing house shows, doing all these things. It's built into his blood, so he needs to stay busy all the time. So I think G.I. Joe 3 will happen, and I think that it will be better with The Rock kind of producing in the background.
Yeah, it all depends on what your definition of soon is, though, because I don't think it's in the immediate future, so I will have to sell this story, even though I would love to see another G.I. Joe, because unlike John, I thought Retaliation was a lot better than The Rise of Cobra. I enjoyed, despite the scene with the RZA doing his best Master Splinter impression, I really liked Retaliation, and in large part because of what The Rock brought to the table. But I'll say this, is that if you want to buy it like Kristian did, there's some hope, but that hope comes with the gray cloud that you could have The Rock be in a movie sooner rather than later in the G.I. Joe world, but maybe he's not in the movie that long, because we all know that Channing Tatum was not in G.I. Joe Retaliation that long, although he was one of the selling points of the film going into it. It's like, oh, let's go see that Channing Tatum movie because he's teaming up with The Rock, and they teamed up for like a half a scene.
Right.
But then we still got a really cool action movie after that, so I would love to see it happen. I just sell that The Rock is going to be able to clear it. If one guy can do it, it's The Rock. I just don't think he can clone himself again in order to pull that off in the next 3 years.
Now, I'm not one of these guys who, necessarily supports the idea, oh, cross this movie franchise with this movie franchise, but you might have brought it up a long time ago. I know a lot of fans brought it up too. You might get me interested if you see G.I. Joe 3 is going to cross with Transformers.
Yeah. It was a comic. It
was definitely done in the comic books. I mean, if you do that, I mean, get rid of whatever little military unit it is that they have. They call this, they say is working with the Transformers in it. It was called Nest or something like that. Get rid of that. Replace him with G.I. Joe. Right. The Rock and Optimus Prime going into a fight. I mean, I might be able to get excited.
And then
for
we'll
that.
throw some Mask in there.
Better, so much better than going to the medieval times with King Arthur. I mean, come on.
They're going to the medieval times.
Stupid.
Forgot.
Where's Arthur?
Where's the wizard? All right. Now, before we get into our next buy or sell, this has just dropped online. I don't know. I don't have a lot of information about this. It's just got passed on to me. Apparently, The Hollywood Reporter is now reporting that actor Benicio del Toro is in talks to star in Shane Black's Predator reboot. Ooh. Which, I mean, this dude seems to just be getting busier and busier as time goes on. I'm looking forward to this. We're just hearing this. We have no background information. You hear Benicio del Toro might be in the new Predators. Does that excite you?
Yes, that would be huge to be in the new Predators, because he's one of the badasses that could learn from Schwarzenegger's character from the original, and then take that knowledge about how to defeat Predator. You put some mud on you, you get a nice big gun, and you go in the jungle and you look for Predator. Usually when actors start doing Heineken commercials, they're on the downturn of their career, but this guy's got episode 8 coming out. Maybe he's in the new Predator movie. Benicio del Toro, do more Heineken ads, man. It's helping.
Kristian, you hear about this?
We're still in buy and sell, so I'm big, huge buy. This is awesome to have. Look, Benicio del Toro is a guy, he just keeps getting better.
Yeah,
I mean,
he does.
Look, Sicario, I think, is his best performance to date. I think he was so good in that movie. I think he should have at least been nominated in that film. But yeah, they're nabbing him. And this just shows hard work, good work, and they're going after the talent, and Shane Black going after him. if it serves the story, you could see him as part of hopefully a new unit that's kind of going after the Predator. But it almost, is he going to be a different version of what Billy was in the first Predator? Is he going to be something completely different? This is cool. This is really cool news. And to get actors like that in the movie, then yeah, they're taking it seriously and they're going for it.
Now, Mark Riley is passing notes to me like a schoolgirl in grade 3, but he's pointing out that in the report, they are suggesting that the new Predator movie is said to be an ensemble piece, with the anchor character being the role they're eyeing Del Toro for.
Great.
So that could be really interesting.
Mark Riley writes, do you like Benicio del Toro in this movie? Check box.
Yes.
Yes or no.
All right, Ashley, what's our next buy or sell?
Just as Jeff Nichols premiered his new civil rights drama, Loving, at the Toronto International Film Festival, a new report from Deadline has him in negotiations with 20th Century Fox to write and direct a new version of Alien Nation, the 1988 sci-fi thriller that starred James Caan as a racist cop forced to team with a member of an alien race played by Mandy Patinkin. A release date has yet to be set. Mark, buy or sell an Alien Nation reboot written and directed by Jeff Nichols.
This is a buy because I actually had the pleasure of finally getting to watch Midnight Special on the plane back from Eastern Illinois a couple days ago. It's really good.
Yeah.
It builds well. And I think that if you need a guy who's going to work in the sci-fi genre, but also lend that more cerebral approach to it, not just make it a big popcorn fluffy blockbuster, Jeff Nichols is one of the guys, along with Denny Villa. I think Jeff Nichols is one of those dudes that can definitely pull that off. He's going to get the best drama, and he's not that bad at sci-fi either, as Midnight Special proved.
Here's the thing about what the directions you can go with this. With Alien Nation, you don't have to go straight up remake. And when you look at, like, there's a little bit of District 9 involved in here too, which of course Alien Nation came before District 9, but the notion of being able to look from a sociological point of view, what happens when a completely different race is now not just arrived, but now injected into our culture and society. What does that look like? And after seeing Midnight Special, I'm dying to see what Jeff can do getting his hands on this and what kind of direction he takes us in. I got a feeling it's not going to be a buddy cop movie, kind of like the original. I think he'll go a little bit deeper than that, and I think there's a lot of rich territory you can cover. For me, it's a huge buy.
Huge buy for me also, just from the tone of Midnight Special to what they could do with this movie. But I'll tell you, this is the thing. Remakes these days, they remake great movies all the time. They remake Vacation. They remake all these movies that sometimes don't need a remake. Alien Nation's okay. It's not great. It's okay with a great premise. And with good performances also. You go back and watch the movie, it's a little dated now, and it's just okay. When people are just like, oh, why are you making this? It's crap. That's why you remake it. I don't think the movie's crap, but I think that it's a movie that could serve well with a remake. And I think Jeff Nichols is a guy that, yeah, let's see what you can do. And Mandy Patinkin as the alien? Are you kidding?
Which role do you think Michael Shannon plays in the new movie? Because you know Michael Shannon's going to be in this somewhere. He works with Jeff Nichols all the time. Would you like him as the cop? Would you like him as one of the aliens?
I'd like him as one of the aliens.
Yeah.
Personally. All right, what's next?
Survival Pictures has released the first trailer for The Promise, starring Oscar Isaac, Charlotte LeBon, and Christian Bale. The Promise is a love triangle between Isaac, Bale, and LeBon, set during the Armenian genocide of 1914, where the Ottoman Empire systematically murdered as many as 1.5 million Armenian. While the film premiered at TIFF, the movie does not have a release date at this time. Christian Bale saw the first trailer for The Promise.
I'll buy it. I thought Hotel Rwanda was a beautiful movie and a tragic movie. And
fabulous.
A really, really great film. And Don Cheadle was probably at his best in that film. To see this director doing something with both Oscar Isaac and Christian Bale in the same movie, that alone gets me intrigued. Then you see it. Look, the movie could be one of those movies that it's just you're watching it and you're just taken through these wave of emotions, because I certainly was just in the trailer. It could also be a slower kind of movie that might bore some people. I don't know, but from this particular trailer, I buy it. I like what I'm seeing here, and I like to see Oscar Isaac going back to these types of roles. Back and forth. I want to see him do the big budget movies, whether it be a Star Wars or Apocalypse, and I want to see him go back to this. I want to see Bale do the same thing. This is what we fell in love with these guys for what they can do as actors. To see them in these where their talents are going to shine. Yeah, I'm buying this trailer.
I can't believe how good some of the trailers we've been getting lately are.
Yeah.
I'm a huge buy on this. I think this looks spectacular, actually. I love the look of this movie. This looks like it's a wonderful story. And as Kristian was pointing out, if you haven't seen Hotel Rwanda, go see it. Don Cheadle is amazing. I know he got an Academy Award nomination for his performance in that. It's absolutely unbelievable. If this dude can take those sensibilities to a story like this And like I said, whether it's Live by Night, Beauty, the one with Will Smith,
Collateral
Beauty. I mean, we've just been getting some killer trailers lately. This gets added to the list, so for me, it's a big buy.
Well, don't worry, John. We got 50 Shades Darker coming tomorrow. Until then, when you're talking about this film, yeah, it's a buy for me as well. And it would have been a more cautious buy had it not been from the director of Hotel Rwanda, because the source material you're going with here, the subjects that you're covering here, from the Armenian genocide to the Turks siding with the Germans at the outset of World War I, then also the implications of the entire world getting involved in this. It's very sensitive to handle, and you want to do it with an unflinching eye. That somebody who certainly, if they brought us Hotel Rwanda, I think could be able to handle this story with respect as well. And then just from a cinematic standpoint, Oscar Isaac, Christian Bale, you make a great point, Kristian, is that before we knew these guys as Poe Dameron and Batman, they made their bread and butter off of these smaller, really dramatic roles. So I think they're going to go back to their roots here, and it's going to pay off. It's a big buy for me.
All right, what's next?
As part of a long-form interview at the Toronto International Film Festival, Entertainment Weekly spoke to Michael Fassbender following a screening of some scenes from X-Men Days of Future Past. The actor told the outlet about the performance, "I don't actually like that performance there, to be honest. I just think it's me shouting. It's just like some dude shouting." In regards to his role as Apple founder Steve Jobs and Danny Boyle's adaptation of Steve Jobs, the actor pointed to Aaron Sorkin's script as formidable. "He wrote all that stuff. It was so dense. It was such a mountain, and I'm a slow learner. So when the script arrived for me and the opportunity came to play the part, I really thought, this is not me. This should be somebody else. It's a miscast scenario." He then somewhat joked about slamming his arm in a door in order to get out of the role that garnered an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. John Byers saw Fassbender's comments about Magneto as some dude shouting.
Well, I buy his comments, but I'm going to sell the way a lot of people have taken the comments, because they've been taking the comments out of context. What you're hearing is a lot of people saying, Michael Fassbender didn't like his performance as Magneto. That's not what he said. Remember the context of this. They screened a couple of scenes from one of the movies, and he said, I'm not really happy with that performance. He was talking about specific scenes. He wasn't saying, I didn't do a very good job with Magneto. He did great as Magneto. He was fabulous. And he wasn't just some dude shouting like, Apocalypse was. He was nuanced. He had layers. He had emotion. And as a matter of fact, he was almost single-handedly saved X-Men Apocalypse. Those scenes, let's bring up that spoiler alert if you've got it here. For those of you who've not seen X-Men Apocalypse yet, there's a scene in the film where Michael Fassbender's Magneto's daughter dies. And the way he plays that role, not only because he's the most powerful being on the planet and you're like, oh my God, the crap is about to hit the fan, but you felt his pain. And he's done that throughout this franchise. He was so good at it. As far as his comments, and we can take down the spoiler alert now, as far as his comments regarding Jobs goes, I think that's just a humble actor. I think that's just a humble guy saying, this role was too big for me. I'm not the right guy for this. I'm too slow. But obviously he must have done a pretty good job because he got an Academy Award nomination for it. But I really like the way he self-analyzes. So on that basis alone, I buy these comments. Mark?
I'll buy him as well. I mean, he seems honest. And I love hearing that actors, because sometimes they come from different backgrounds, and sometimes they're very fast when they pick up lines as far as memorization goes, and other times it is a slower process for them. So for him to freely admit, he's like, yeah, the Aaron Sorkin stuff was great, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to chew off all of it. It was pretty cool to see that. And as far as some dude shouting as Magneto, that's the problem I think a lot of people had with Apocalypse, is as the movie progresses, we got less of the intense emotional Magneto, and we got more of him just hanging out, moving metal, while this climax is happening, by and large, without him being a direct involved player. So I think that there might be a little bit of, I didn't get to do all I wanted to do as Magneto, who, by the way, is a bad guy. But it was still cool to see Michael Fassbender be as honest and revealing as he was. So I'll buy him.
Kristian?
Well, that's why I'm going to buy the comments, is because it's refreshing to have a guy who just was so open about, his insecurities, to be honest with you, because he's a guy, he's a perfectionist. He is. You hear his interviews and stuff that he wants to do, and he wants to be one of the best of all time. And the way he approaches every one of his performances, and he looked back on the thing and he was open with it. I don't agree with him. I don't, because that's how good I think he is. I think that in those performances that he thought he was just screaming and yelling, and he wasn't taking digs at Magneto, he's taking digs at the way that he particularly played, like John said, those scenes. And I liked those scenes. I thought that he carried out the same emotion in Days of Future Past that he did in First Class, and he brought that over to Apocalypse. I thought he was great in those scenes that you had just mentioned as well. So, but to hear him talking about it, and then you hear about the Jobs thing, and this because of all the problems that Jobs had gone through.
Yeah, which was plenty.
It was a lot, and the thing and everyone was saying he doesn't look anything like Jobs, and you know there'd been a movie already beforehand, and all these particular problems are running into it, and the stress probably got to him about it, and maybe being overworked, and he's just like, just get me. All of us have been in jobs or done things where we're just like great stuff. Like I worked the Oscars, and just because, and when I was going to the Oscars, I was like, maybe I shouldn't go, maybe I shouldn't do this. I don't know. And I had a lot of fun doing it because just you put a lot of pressure on yourself. You put a lot of things.
It's like working with Ashley Mova every day.
Every day.
It's like, can we live
That
up
is
to
a
that?
blessing.
I
Okay.
can't get my hair to look like that. So it's like, so anyway, yeah, I really like the idea that he's able to just say this, and he's honest.
All right, folks. Well, listen, we do this show live every day. And for those of you watching us live, we're going to save a little bit of time at the end of the show to take some of your live Twitter questions. Got a question? You can fire it in right now to us on Twitter. Make sure you're following us at Collider Video. And our very own Wendy Lee is actually monitoring the chat board today. She's the one you got to kiss up to and get ready for that. Now, speaking of Wendy, the brand new Civil War Blu-ray actually drops tomorrow, I believe. It's already been released on digital distribution, but the Blu-ray drops tomorrow. And our own Wendy Lee had a chance to go down to a special event put on by Marvel celebrating, commemorating the release of Captain America Civil War on Blu-ray. And she got to do some pretty cool things while there, including her own action scene against Iron Man. Here, check this out. There's a reason we have Wendy handling all the production schedules around here. Yes. Well done,
That's why I get scared
Wendy.
when I put in my availabilities.
Was that fun, Wendy? Like how long did it take to shoot that little scene you did?
I think it was only 30 seconds, and I think it took about 25 to 30 minutes to shoot because they had to do over the shoulder and do a master. So I just can't believe how much these stunt guys have to do over and over all day, every day on set and keep up the momentum.
Well, you looked awesome in it.
Thank you.
And hey, listen, guys, Movie Talk is not the only show that is airing on the Collider Video YouTube channel here today. A little bit later today, Josh McCouga and his team will be bringing you TV Talk. That drops at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're into television, you'll want to watch Josh and TV Talk a little bit later today. All right, folks, with that being said, it's time for our mailbag segment. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question you'd like us to address on the show, just email us anytime at collidervideo@gmail.com. We take at least one or two questions every day. So, Ashley, what's in the mailbag today?
Sebastian Lopez writes, I really have two different questions. The first is, now that they are making a Pokemon movie, you think the other studios will start going after other animated shows and turn them into live action movies like Digimon and Steven Universe?
Well, I mean, you got to keep in mind that not everything is just like the other here. It's not like you've just got Pokemon and then you got Digimon and Steve's Universe and other shows of that nature. Pokemon recently went through a brand new worldwide phenomenon with Pokemon Go. The brand of Pokemon is now on everybody's minds and everybody's lips, including people in this office and in my own home. That's all anybody does. I mean, I swear to, it doesn't matter where we go. We were at Jason Inman's wedding yesterday, and in the middle, I think it might have been Josh's speech. I caught Ann pulling out because she was capturing called
It's
Balthazar
still going
or
on,
something.
the Pokemon?
It's still going on.
During Josh's speech. It was a short and sweet speech. It's not like, oh, come on, gotta get to the point.
I
here.
guarantee you she's
Sweet,
doing it my
maybe.
entire speech. She was doing it the entire time. So remember, Pokemon, unlike those other brand IPs you just mentioned, Pokemon is in the midst of a worldwide kind of push right now. It's on everybody's mind. Everybody is saying the word Pokemon right now. So had that not happened, I really don't think a live action film would be going into production at this point. So we'll have to wait and see. Look, studios are looking for new IP. They are desperately looking for new IP, things they could not just make a movie out of, but maybe make franchises out of. So never say never about those other properties. but they're on different footing right now because of the popularity of the game. I don't know, Mark, how do you see this whole thing?
I think the issue you run into, John, is that whether you should just make a live-action film or you should stay in the animated universe but make a full live-action feature. Because something like Steven Universe is a really cool show, and it's got a groundswell of support right now. I think Steven Universe is one of those shows that could translate into live-action easier than something that I'm another fan of is Squidbillies. But I don't know that Squidbillies, you could pull it off without like a huge CGI budget in order to do the live-action convert. But something else that gets mentioned a lot in my household is Dragon Ball Z, where I think there's a lot of nerves about converting Dragon Ball Z live action, because I believe it's been attempted sometimes in the past, but pleasing the hardcore fans of DBZ and getting the mythology and the lore right is so hard to do that it might be better served to stick in the animated universe. But I think you might see them attempt that in the next couple of years. There's so many DBZ fans out there.
Kristian.
I don't know enough about it when it comes to these. From when I hear these, I've stopped saying, "Oh no, it won't work." Yeah, who knows? Just an app. Leave it alone. Or it's a matter of the teams that they're putting behind it now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem anymore that they're just throwing stuff. Well, this is popular. Let's try it, because that formula didn't work when they tried to do that years ago with all the video games.
Yeah.
And now they're seeing that. I mean, look at even Angry Birds, which I haven't seen yet and hear just okay things about, but at least they put the effort into it. It did mildly okay.
They made the effort to build a world around
it.
They did, yes.
So I mean, it's. If they find the properties and they get the teams that think they can tell the right stories, obviously they're going to try to capitalize off popularity, and that makes sense. But as long as they're giving us the right teams behind it, I'm fine with whatever comes.
Ashley, I'm dying to know. Have you been swept up into this Pokemon Go thing, or do you have people who have?
I want to lie and say that I have, because all of my friends are obsessed with Pokemon Go, but I can't get into it. First of all, there's no instructions. You open it and you're just like, I'm going to guess how to do this. I just can't get into it, but I really wanted to try. I don't think other studios are going to try this, because like their game caught on. Everyone's playing it. Like there's no other reason to try other things.
All right, folks. Well, I said at the end of the show we would save some time for your live Twitter questions, and we're going to do that right now. Once again, make sure you're following us on Twitter at Collider Video. Fire in some questions, and right now Wendy's been picking some out back there. So Wendy, what do you got for us?
Chat Room Goom says, Collider Video, which would you rather run into late at night? Xenomorphs, T-1000s, or Raptors?
What?
T-1000s. You at least try to convert them. You can't necessarily.
Program, yeah.
You can try to reprogram it. You probably lose, but at least out of the other ones, no thanks. Yeah, T-1000s.
I think T-1000s. Maybe there'll be some kind of Android app to hack the T-1000.
Maybe it's a Pokemon fan.
Maybe I mean Raptors. No, Raptors just a no-go from right there. There's no getting away from that.
Unless you're done.
Raptors would have been until a couple years ago when look if Chris Pratt can go from a chubby schlub into a handsome leading man, and I did the same thing, I think I'd be able to also train some Raptors. At least
I think
run
you
into
were
them
his
on the
inspiration,
street.
as a matter of fact.
I just do this, and I hold them long enough, right? And then you just slowly, I know this is perfect form. This is born into me. I know how to train Raptors. Give me a shot.
You just got to convince the Raptors that you have 1% Raptor DNA in you.
Oh, that's a meme. Come on.
All right.
You know what Raptors love eating? Baby carrots. Just keep tossing them baby carrots.
Self-plug.
It's Learning Corner with Mark Ellis. Parents around the world are going, why are my kids failing now? Okay, what else we got on the Twitter board?
A Clay says, what movie could be this year's surprise Oscar contender?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'm going to go with Arrival. I think Arrival is going to be a surprise contender for Best Picture. I think there's going to be some performances in there worthy of Oscars.
A Monster Calls. I think a Monster Calls now. All the buzz now that it's starting to get out of the tiff here. It's a matter of time before that thing will be nominated. I think it's kind of whether it wins, we'll find out.
I agree with you.
Now, I'm going to go, if we want to talk about surprise that could be in for Oscar contention, I'm going to say Captain America Civil War. I think that would be the one, because that would really surprise a lot of people. But I think the movie was received well enough by critics, by Academy members, by the audience, that it's hard to say until we see all these other Oscar season movies that are coming, because maybe there's going to be like 20 of them that are just lights out amazing.
Yeah.
But I think there is an outside dark horse chance here that Civil War might get some consideration.
Well, I'm hoping Hell or High Water is one of those too. So
it's got to be.
Best supporting.
Yeah.
But it's funny. You know what would be a surprise right now that wouldn't have been? It was a front runner. Was Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation.
Yeah, there's
That's
so
true.
much controversy
Birth of a
surrounding
Nation.
it, yeah.
If before the controversy
Right.
came out, you'd be like, yeah, it's probably going to win. Now, if it gets nominated in all these awards, it would be a bit of a surprise because of all the negative backlash of the Nate Parker's personal life.
And the thing I'm most interested, one of them at the Oscars this year, is to see the best animated movie category, because I think that at the beginning of the year you would have handicapped Finding Dory simply because it's Pixar,
Yep.
or maybe look towards November when Moana comes out, a big Disney release. Kubo and the Two Strings
Gotta be.
could knock
Yeah.
both of them out. I would love to see Kubo win, depending on how I feel about Moana when I
At
see
this
it.
point, look, I very much liked Finding Dory. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I very much liked Zootopia. But I will be shocked if Kubo doesn't win Best Animated Film. Like, just absolutely shocked if it doesn't win. So let's keep our eye on that. All right, what's next?
Ben Berkowitz says, what is an appropriate amount of time to pass to release a film based on real-life tragedy?
That is a great question. I remember, actually, you and I were talking a little bit about Oliver Stone's 9/11 film
Yeah.
they did with Nick Cage, and there was some talk about that at the time. I'm one of these people that I believe that within, like, stories and storytelling is the core of our very culture and who and what we are. We tell stories. We learn from stories. We express desires in stories. We express what we aspire to be, what we fear of becoming, all that kind of stuff. I don't think, depending on how a story is handled, you don't want to sensationalize things, but I'm one of these guys where if something really significant in our world happens, I'm one of these guys that I have no problem with some studio going, let's tell this story. Let's tell this story. Maybe put in things that people didn't know or didn't realize. Let's show it from a point of view that we might not have considered. So I'm one of these guys that I'm like, I'm okay with tell the story and tell it right now. But again, there's so many variables involved. Do you sensationalize it? How many, how much time do you need to develop that kind of story? Are there big question marks about the real facts surrounding it? There's a lot of variables, but just as a flat general answer, I'm okay with going right into it. What do you think?
My thing, depending on what the story is, it's the people involved in the real stories, it's the families involved in the real stories, and how they have mourned or how they want the story told, or if they think it's time for the story to be told. That's my thing. Like, so when it comes to, let's say, the 9/11 movie with Oliver Stone, I believe it was 2006, which was 5 years later. The police officers and the firemen that were portrayed in that, I'm sure that they were all cleared with the families in order to tell that story. That's for me. If the families involved want the story told, or if it's a bigger event like something like Pearl Harbor, obviously when that came out years later, it just depends on the event, but it really depends on the people that they're telling a story. Now with Pearl Harbor, it's fictionalized characters you bring up in this tragic thing that happened, but that's my thing. It's just how the people involved want the story told.
Those are the ones that get me, is the Pearl Harbors, when it is so fictionalized and it seems like you're almost using an event to tell a story that is complete BS. And Pearl Harbor, I mean, maybe the statute of limitations had run out because it was almost 60 years after the event, but if you're going to do something, or like say the JFK show that Stephen
one?
King wrote, the
11/22/63.
yeah. That, like something like that, where it's been enough time has passed where you can enjoy telling a time travel story about that. But sometimes when movies use 9/11, even to this day, when they're like, oh, 9/11 like was the reason that Jack Ryan went into the service, like I felt that was a little cheap in the most recent Jack Ryan movie. So if you're telling a story that's based in fact and you have given time for all of the facts to come out about a particular scenario, you don't have to know everything about 9/11, but if you're just telling a story about how it impacted one particular family, let's say, I'm fine with that. But allow the facts to come out and to be verified before you tell a story. That'd be my thing.
And I think this is a good place to kind of wrap up today's show. Yesterday, we didn't have a show on yesterday, obviously. Yesterday was September 11th, the 15th anniversary of the horrible events of 9/11. And I remember I was actually literally in an airport when it happened. When I was leaving for the airport, we had heard that there was an accident and one plane had crashed into a building. By the time I got to the airport, it was on all the TVs that a second plane had crashed. This was clearly not an accident. And the world changed that day. And I remember yesterday talking to some people online, both friends of mine and just some fans on Twitter, and talking about, one of the things that does is it really puts in perspective and highlights the way that tragedy and disaster can, while being terrible, it can bring out the best in human beings. And when you look at the way the world rallied together, at least most of the world rallied together around that, you saw nation helping nation. And we, as movie fans, look at something like that, and you realize at that point, when tragedy struck, there was no such thing as Republicans or Democrats. And as movie fans, we don't care anymore whether DC is better or Marvel is better or Star Wars is better or Star Trek is better. It puts, when you reflect on real world events like that, it puts a lot of things in perspective, and you realize, you know what, we are really all in this messed up, stupid thing together. And that was really encouraging to me. And somebody shared with me a wonderful couple of panels from a comic book I hadn't seen before, but I guess it was released shortly after 9/11, had Spider-Man surveying the damage of the event, and then it had him like kind of reflecting, and then you saw all these Marvel superheroes at the time in the wreckage trying to help the rescuers and stuff like that. And then at the end, even Doctor Doom, Magneto, and Kingpin show up to help the thing. And you realize it just, I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking about it. It was really kind of neat seeing that these events make us put everything into perspective. And I thought that's the lesson that I kind of take away from it 15 years later. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. I first want to thank the people sitting at the table with me. First of all, sitting to my left, Mr. Mark Ellis. Mark, where can people find you and your apparent, raptor controlling abilities?
You can find me training my 3 Raptors at home, and I will be watching Monday Night Football with a very big interest on the game tonight. And also Josh McCougar will be here as well. He's a big Steelers fan. I'm a big Redskins fan. A bet will ensue. And then also you guys can find Kristian and I on the Schmoes Know Live show this Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m. PST. We do it live every week from this studio. Very excited for both of us to be back on the panel.
Oh, and you guys have a bet going on with tonight's game. And I understand that the bet you have is that if the Redskins win, McCougar has to wear a Redskins jersey. If the Steelers win, you have to win a Steelers jersey.
You could see me tomorrow morning wearing a Steelers jersey on this very show. I will not be happy. I will not be that participant in the events, but I will wear it. I will be faithful. I don't think that's going to happen. I really think the Skins take tonight.
I would like to propose that you guys elevate this a bit.
Do it.
I want a head shaving match.
I
would like that if the Steelers win, you got to shave your head.
Well,
no?
if you know anything about me, you know this may be the last head of hair I have. So if we get to the playoffs, or we get to we talk Super Bowl. I think Super Bowl, I would think it, because you shaved your head for a championship.
You can find that online. I actually got my head shaved when the Red Sox won the World Series in 2007.
That's right.
And
That's
awesome.
awesome.
And it's online.
Well, speaking of experienced head shaver, sitting over here on my right, Mr. Kristian Harloff, where can people find you?
You can see me wrapping a big thing of electrical tape over John Roca's mouth on Friday in the Schmodown.
Nice.
But you can find me on Jedi Council every Thursday. Make sure you check that out, and on Twitter and Instagram at Kristian Harloff.
Miss Ashley Mova, where can people find you?
Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, at Ashley Mova. Happy Monday, guys.
Sitting back there controlling our Twitter board, we got Wendy Lee. Wendy, where can people find you?
On Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Wendy Lee Zaney.
Special thanks to all the guys in the room here who helped put this whole thing together. You guys can find me on Facebook and on Twitter, simply at John Campea. Make sure you're following my and John Schnepp's show, Film HQ, on Comic-Con HQ. And you can also find me calling the play-by-play on you and John Roca on our Schmodown movie trivia competition this week.
And I guess we could announce the special guest that we have who's going to be doing the announcing with you.
Yes, it's myself and
Mr. Freddie Prinze Jr. will be doing the announcing for that match that happens this Friday.
I'm out of a job, and I couldn't be happier about it.
That's going to be a lot of fun. So that'll do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.